Hi everybody, it's the History Teacher. In this episode we'll examine the causes of the American Civil War, which started in 1861 and ended in 1865, killing between 620 and 800,000 people. More Americans were killed in the Civil War than all other American wars combined. Historians distinguish between ultimate or long-term causes and proximate or immediate causes. We'll be looking at 2 ultimate causes and 8 proximate causes. Starting with the ultimate causes. First, the North and South developed radically different economies, which required different political policies and which were based on different value systems. In the early 19th century, the North industrialized. Its factories and trade shops were operated by free labor. Slavery was gradually abolished in the North and had disappeared there by the time of the Civil War. The Southern economy was agrarian, that is, based on farming, and a lot of that farming was performed by enslaved black people. It's important to note that not more than 25% of Southerners owned enslaved people. Nevertheless, 3.5 million of the 9 million people in the South in 1860 were enslaved. Southerners themselves acknowledged that slavery was the cornerstone of their civilization. The South and the North required different political policies to thrive. For example, the North wanted high tariffs or import taxes to protect their growing manufacturing. But the South, which purchased a lot of manufactured goods from overseas, wanted low tariffs. The North and the South became practically separate civilizations with different attitudes and policy needs that were sometimes mutually exclusive. The second ultimate cause was the development of fervent abolitionism in the North in the 1830s, which was part of a wider movement of elevating human dignity. Abolitionism was dedicated to the immediate elimination of slavery in the United States. Abolitionists attacked Southern people's morality and simply wanted the slaves freed regardless of the impact to the so-called Southern way of life. Abolitionists were also considered to be encouraging rebellion among enslaved peoples. For all of these reasons, abolitionists were perceived as a provocation and as a threat to Southerners. Now the proximate or immediate causes. First, the dispute about whether the vast territory conquered by the United States in the Mexican-American War would be open to slavery or not. Southerners demanded that it should be, while Northerners were equally adamant that slavery shouldn't be permitted to expand. Second, the Compromise of 1850, which was meant to resolve the question of slavery in the conquered Mexican territories. The compromise restored the balance between free and slave states, but it didn't resolve the underlying tensions. Third, the Kansas-Nebraska Act of 1854, which meant that slavery was now possible north of the line established by the 1820 Missouri Compromise, where slavery was supposed to be prohibited forever. Fourth, the creation of the Republican Party in 1854, which was dedicated to preventing the expansion of slavery. Due to soil exhaustion and population growth, Southern farmers needed to continue expanding westward, and they wanted to take their enslaved people with them. To Southerners, preventing slavery from moving west was equivalent to compelling an end to slavery everywhere, which meant an end to Southern civilization. Fifth, in the Dred Scott decision in 1857, the U.S. Supreme Court declared that black people, whether enslaved or free, were not American citizens, and that Congress had no right to restrict slavery in any of the territories. This meant that slavery could be imported into any new territories, north, south, or west, and that the Republican Party's primary goal of restricting slavery was now illegal. Sixth, John Brown's attempt to incite a slave insurrection and arm enslaved people in 1859. John Brown, a radical abolitionist, along with his sons and some freed black people, attacked Harper's Ferry, Virginia, for the purpose of obtaining the weapons in the arsenal there and distributing them to enslaved people so that they could fight for their freedom. But Brown's mission failed and he was captured and executed. The South was furious that Brown had obtained financing and support from Northerners, so many in the South considered Brown's action an attack on the South by the North. Seventh, the election of Abraham Lincoln in 1860. Although Lincoln said that he would not interfere with slavery where it existed, the South did not believe him. States in the Deep South refused to accept Lincoln's presidency. They began to secede or leave the Union, starting with South Carolina in December 1860. Eighth and finally, South Carolina's attack on Fort Sumter in Charleston Harbor in April 1861. Fort Sumter was occupied by federal troops, and South Carolina wanted them gone. Responding to the attack, Lincoln called for 75,000 volunteers to suppress the rebellion. That, in turn, prompted states in the Upper South, such as Virginia, to also secede. At this point, war was inevitable. Only 3 months later, forces from the North and South would clash at the Battle of First Manassas or First Bull Run, inaugurating 4 years of brutal warfare. Okay, so those are the causes of the American Civil War. Thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.